So, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached that time again. This is the second episode of the live action Netflix pirate show that cannot be One Piece. But sit back, relax, and enjoy this glorious review of what should be most definitely the episode that changes my mind, right? So, this episode starts off with them doing the reverse mountain situation in order for them to get into the Grand Line, which is really, just a little bit of whatever, who cares. But you do get your, a little taste of a little Sanji and Zoro kind of nitpicking thing, is what I would like to say, but realistically, the guy that they got that's blonde is not playing Sanji. He's playing more so of a very chivalrous kind of guy. Not a simp, but just very chivalrous. And because of that fact, there's a lot of negative points against his character towards doing certain things and how he handles and carries himself. But aside from that, it's still a whatever, who cares thing. They got to go up Reverse Mountain a certain way, and they're doing it. So now we come up to the scene while they're heading up Reverse Mountain in order to get into the Grand Line. And a very questionable scene because this just seems to drag on for a very long time. Now, you had a scenario where Usopp was trying to move the rudder, and then essentially Zoro and Sanji came and helped, and it broke, and now they have no way to steer the Mary, in which case Luffy throws his hands out in a Spider-Man 2-esque scenario, which is odd because he's not really grounded onto the Mary in any way, so it doesn't really make sense how he's able to maneuver. His feet are just on top, as you can see. But it doesn't really change the fact that essentially watching this scene is just very long. Rather than them going up the current of the mountain in a kind of fast-paced way, this is just dragging. It's just dragging. But that's just a personal thing. Now, this right here was bothering me, so I actually had to do, I guess you could say, a little bit of research and go back and watch the One Piece episode in which they went up Reverse Mountain. But I felt like it was slow, and I was right, because essentially when they go up Reverse Mountain, the current is supposed to be so strong that it just immediately carries them up. The danger was just trying to get into the narrow quack in order for them to go up Reverse Mountain. And essentially, even once they get on the current, even Nami was like, "Oh, once you furl the sails, it's smooth sailing. Then we're going to go up, and it's going to automatically shoot us out into the Grand Line." So the show having them kind of slowly veer up the mountain, it felt weird and felt off. And then like now I see why. And essentially, what it did was that it kind of took away the disbelief or exactly how strong and how powerful a current that's going up a fucking mountain would actually be, because they were slowly steering through everything, and then essentially there's like wreckage of ships and stuff like that all throughout the pathway going up Reverse Mountain, and jagged rocks and whatnot. It was just one of the things where it was like that it just kind of slowed the pacing down for some reason. I felt that it was off, and it was. It was one of the situations where it was like you're adding drama. And a lot of that in that scene, you were seeing stuff like Sanji trying to walk around the ship, and boxes and supplies are falling over, and then Nami did the same thing while Luffy's just goofily hanging around sitting on top of Mary, when I was expecting them to do it because it is just a grand moment. But at first, when they were about to veer into a rock when the rudder broke, I thought they were going to have the moment when Luffy actually turns into Balloon and saves the Mary from crashing into the side. But instead, they kind of ripped off Spider-Man 2 for some reason. But yeah, that's a decision, I guess. But it's one of the things where it's like you did that, and it just kind of slowed the pacing down for what should have just been an intense, epic moment, and then the grandeur of going up Reverse Mountain. Because the thrill of them going up Reverse Mountain and then them smiling and laughing, thinking like, "Yeah, we're going to the Grand Line, we're going to the Grand Line," only to them bump into Laboon, is like, one of those little like type of situations. But with this, they were adding on drama. which was unnecessary. So it was just, but typical Netflix TV bullshit. It's not a good thing, and it's not necessary, but they do it in order to just, like I said, it's just unnecessary. But so right here we get our first shot of Laboon. Yay, Laboon! Wow, so amazing. He looks so good. I will take time to say this. Yes, this does look fine. I mean, considering blank check from Netflix, you better. But the cope that I'm seeing from a lot of people talk about this show is that a general positive that a lot of people are giving it is the fact that the show looks good and that a lot of the characters look like the manga or anime counterpart. And the thing is that that's not a plus. The show, that's the least you should do, is that everyone should look like the fucking characters wearing the clothes and things like that. This is not something that's just a major push that makes this just a perfect show or anything like that. It's like, no, that's the least that should be expected, is that this has some decent quality when it comes to just the overall aesthetic of the show. One Piece is a very bright, colorful, and character-driven series with a wonderful array of different character designs. So if you was to tackle something like that, that should have been on the forefront of like, oh yeah, we're definitely going to do that. So I don't give it a pass or any type of extra credit or nothing like that because this looks the way that it does. This is expected. I expected it to look like this, but for the most part, this is okay. But from the things that I've heard about what they're gonna do with Laboon, I'm going to be very upset later on. But you know, it is what it is. Okay. Um. Wow. 8 minutes in. Uh. Jesus Christ. So I gave you what I consider praise not too long ago, only to then have it be sullied immediately after your little title credit thing. Now, to give you a quick summary of what's happening, they came down Reverse Mountain, which Laboon's in front of them, and then they bump into Laboon. Which is a giant whale creature that we're going to discover more about later. For those of you who haven't watched One Piece, I suggest you go watch One Piece because this show's a crock of shit. And one of the things that I would say that is that we are now being introduced to Laboon bumping into the mountain that covers the Red Line, or the Red Line in general. But that is supposed to be this big ass whale charging up speed and then ramming his head into this big ass mountain. We're getting small little headbutts at cliffs at best. He's trying to get through the red line so he can do what he want to do, which is a part of the story. But this looks very slow and very ridiculous rather than him doing the whole, you know, kind of like a anti-Free Willy situation, really. Which is the crazy thing about the boom, because it's like, you know, it's killing him, but that's how serious he is about getting through the red line. So that I have a problem with because this looks insanely slow, as well as something that doesn't really justify that he would get as much damage or like be as beaten up as he is, considering all that he went through. But then you have what I'm gonna give credit where credit is due and praise this, is that what you had has been one of the first and only true examples of a fucking Easter egg within this series, which was that Luffy was passed out and he said 5 more minutes to dawn. That was an actual Easter egg. That was something that was fine. That was okay. Not showing Sabo for no fucking reason when he's not supposed to be there. Not having Bartholomew pop up when he's not supposed to be there and interacting with characters when he didn't interact with them. And then if you're a dumbass who sits there and think that, oh, look, he was there. Yeah, but he didn't talk to him. You saw One Piece. He didn't speak to any of them. So even if he was there, he didn't talk to none of them. Idiot. So none of that quantifies or is an Easter egg or is something for the fans, nothing like that. That's just pretentious Netflix stupid showrunner dumb shit. This was actually an Easter egg. This is actually something that resonates with fans as well as very much in character. And I welcome stuff like that. But I seen the first season and I know better. Into thinking like, you know, they're gonna keep doing stuff like that later on. Yeah, but whale hitting his head on a cliff ain't supposed to be like this. He's supposed to be like up here or something like that, like just jumping and smashing into this damn rock, all like that. But whatever. I swear to God, this show is gonna give me like just the biggest fucking migraine in the world. Okay, so we have Luffy attacking Baboon, because he's saying, "Give me back my crew," and he tell him to stop that. But here's the stupid part. Um, Luffy tried to punch Laboon and then was unsuccessful because his hand didn't stretch out far enough to reach him. But also he says, "Get closer." Now, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but you can clearly see that this motherfucker could easily run across the fucking jagged edge to get closer so that he could fight Laboon. And yet his dumbass is standing there breathing heavily saying, "If only I could swim." And it just, it makes my head hurt because you could have you edit this bullshit, right? So like you made these cliffs and whatnot, so you just could have edited it to where he, like, there's a big ass gap or something that he couldn't reach, but he can walk over there. He can leisurely walk over there if he wanted to. But the dumbass writers wanted to have him say some dumbass shit and then do a dumbass thing. But this, see, shit like this is one of those things where it's like, yeah, this can't be a perfect show because you have dumbass shit like this going on. I keep saying dumbass, but this is blatantly stupid, and it's just it's just poor writing. That's all it is. It's just poor writing. This isn't a continuity issue. This isn't what the original series issue is, and it's like he has a clear pathway that he can get to. Luffy wouldn't be someone that would be afraid of the water. He's just trying to fight the whale so he can just get over there. Walk over there, dude. Why wouldn't you walk over there? God damn it. They do. A minute didn't even go by, and you did more stupid shit. Fuck. Now I'll admit it. I hate to admit it, but I do not know his name. This guy, I do not know his name. I know how important of a character he is. I know what he does. I know who he is. I know what crew he's a part of. I know all the significance that matter. All the ingredients to make a high nigga pie. I know about him. I can never remember his name. I know it begins with a C. It's like Cross or something. I can never remember it because I never pronunciate it correctly. I always pronounce it wrong. And so because I just forego the name altogether, he's the old man that's a doctor. That's all I know. And it's sad. It's sad that I have to do that. But here he is. Yay. There he is. There's the guy. Oh, that's great. Um, gonna be a One Piece fan here, an actual One Piece fan. They're outside. He's talking to Luffy right now, outside of Laboon. Yeah. See, I had an expectation that they would do this right, considering that it showed the crew get eaten. But apparently we're going the Pinocchio route with Monstro rather than the actual One Piece route. And when they were making fun of Monstro, so fuck yeah. This is he's not supposed to be out of the whale. He actually lives inside of the whale. He made his own little thing in the whale. And then him being in the whale along with the rest of the crew is very, very important. so important. But now I'm questioning whether or not they're actually going to show Vivi and Mr. 11 correctly, because they're also supposed to be in the whale. That's how she gets introduced. I'm so confused, and this is why this show is terrible, because again, your way of setting up things in order to justify how you conclude stuff, it just don't make any sense. It doesn't. I know how the plot is supposed to go, right? Because that's the only way that it can go. But because of what you've done with your writing, it can't go there correctly. But we'll see. We will see. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about when it comes to the stupidity of this show. Laboon is a Sea King, right? Like he's a big ass Sea King, right? He is a whale, but he is still a Sea King. He's fucking huge. And the thing is that the reason that the old man is inside of him to administer the pain medicine that's stopping Laboon from essentially killing himself is because he's incredibly tough. His skin would be incredibly tough and whatnot. He is a big ass sea king. So this guy shooting the medicine from the outside is crazy. Like, this is utterly insane. And it's like it's explained in the anime why he has to be inside of him in order to administer the medicine, and why he created what the little pocket area inside of Laboon's stomach in order to help administer the medicine. But this shit shoots out, hits Laboon, and then immediately activates. And that's just crazy. Because if this is strong enough to penetrate him, just a long metal needle that's shot out, not the fastest thing in the world, not like the most powerful thing in the world, but just strong metal needle that he shot out. If this is able to do this, then this motherfucker smacking up against the goddamn red line should have killed him years ago. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. This is one of those things where it's like, yeah, you should not have did this. You should not have did this way, because it don't make sense. This is why this don't make sense. Fucking assholes. Crocus. He says Crocus on here. I still don't think that's the right way to pronounce his name. But anywho, from here we have him appearing and telling Luffy that the crew is now inside of that Luffy's crew is now inside of Laboon's stomach. He still hasn't said Laboon. He just calls him that. Well, is he a sea king or a sea beast? I'm not sure. But he then has Luffy approach him and says, I need to get my crew out of there, and I'm not leaving until I get some answers. As if anything else is important aside from him just saving his crew. So he asks, what's the deal with you? What's the deal with the whale? And how do I get my crew out of there? When the only question would just be, how do I get my crew out of the whale? Why would he care about what's the deal with the whale? Now, the reason that he would actually want to know this question is because in the original One Piece, you see Luffy and Laboon actually fight. And then Luffy is the only one outside fighting Laboon, trying to get his crew back, while Crocus, if that is his real name, is actually inside of Laboon talking to the crew and explaining to the crew about Laboon, while Luffy and Laboon deal with their differences man the whale on the outside. But yeah, aside from that, you now have Crocus essentially not being funny. One of the highlights of this character is that he's fucking hilarious in the anime. He is silly as hell. He is like immediately not, he just shows up, he's weird, and he's just so unthreatening, and just he has like a beautiful deadpan delivery of his lines, and just like in comedic timing. But here you just got this serious old man, which is kind of reminiscent of every other serious old man in this series, because no one has that One Piece charm attached to them that actually comes with the hilarity of their character, much like what I said about the guy who's playing Sanji in a chivalrous way rather than the flirtatious girl crazy guy that Sanji actually is, which is his character and very funny and people like it. But not Netflix. Oh, not Netflix. But they love them some gays. Oh boy, just gotta add some gays. Gays and beans, that's what they like. Netflix like gays and beans. Put it on a shirt. What did I tell you? I told you, gay and beans. That's all they like. That's all Netflix care about. Gay and beans. What the fuck is Garp doing here? God damn. We have Garp. We got Garp again. Why do we have Garp? I don't know. It just cut to Tashigi and Smoker trying to get permission to go into the Grand Line. As if anyone fucking cares. Now, if you know One Piece, then you know you're not supposed to see these motherfuckers until they wind up in Alabasta. So, but this series was written very, very stupidly. So instead, we're going to see the bureaucracy that they went through in order to get access to the Grand Line to chase after Luffy and everyone else. Because that's so fucking important. That's what everyone's been missing. But instead, we get Garp talking to him for some reason. Now, this is after you see that Usopp, Nami, Zoro, Sanji are inside of Laboon, and they're trying to figure out a way to get out. And they're right under the uvula, meaning that they're right at his mouth. Meaning that if they can get him to open his mouth, they can get out. Um, like, like with Pinocchio, Monster. In fact, it actually looks like the Kingdom Hearts 1 level when they're inside of Laboon. Even though that's not what it's supposed to look like, because he's a much bigger fucking whale. But you give him an inch, they take a mile. But I'm even more upset at the fact that essentially we got this stupid ass television back and forth dumb shit happening right now, where we are now in the midst of looking at characters that are not only unimportant and unfucking necessary, but we do not need to see at all, because the progression of their story has absolutely nothing to do with the progression of the main characters, which is the Straw Hat Pirates. So seeing an update on Kobe, Helmeppo, Garp, Smoker, and Tashigi is unfucking necessary, because right now the Straw Hats are inside the Grand Line and we're trying to see them traverse the Grand Line, and then you'll learn about Laboon and then you'll see how they interact in doing shit while they just enter the Grand Line. But you can't do that because you motherfuckers keep backtracking the shit, because it's very common in television to jump from character to character to character to character all throughout the fucking story, rather than just focus on the linear story that's actually happening, which is very much on brand for One Piece because it's a fucking manga that is a very linear story. So this goofy TV shit is unnecessary. And if you had the balls to actually convey the story that way, you would have been fine. But instead, you gotta do stupid TV shit because that's all Netflix knows. TV shit, gays, and beans. It's three things, ladies and gentlemen. TV shit, gays, and beans. Now, it's unprecedented how stupid of a concept this actually is, but I forgot how insufferable Kobe was in the first season. But I need to bring up the fact that it is beyond ridiculous that he spends a majority of his time as a character questioning orders when the bulk of everything he wanted to do is be a Marine, and then essentially getting told what to do and following those orders to the T would benefit and suit his character greater than essentially him constantly questioning everything that's going on, and then essentially the series trying to write him as this weird gray man kind of character where he's wondering what's going on with the Marines and how they're handling stuff, because Garp isn't that kind of character, let alone that Marine officer, especially as a vice admiral, where you would have that inability to understand exactly what his motives are, what it is that he's doing. He's a straightforward guy. And there is no shady underbelly shit going on with his character, which again is beneficial to Kobe because that allows him to just grow. And so then Garp can train him and he actually becomes the guy that you see later on. But trying to constantly have Kobe question what's going on with the Marines when that is essentially his dream, is being a part of the Marines, is dumb, because you're purposefully trying to paint the Marines in the little, the gray tone that most people see them as. And it's like, yeah, in the world of One Piece, they are considered the good guys. But as we all know, the main characters are pirates, and then the freedom that the pirates strive for, and then the essentially the representation of control that the Marines give, especially being the people who serve the world government, it's understandable that they would be in that gray area. But Kobe, Garp, Helmeppo, and a lot of the other characters, if you're in the know later on, the whole sword situation, then you help Smoker and Tashigi themselves, then you're aware that there are people that are in the Marines that are just blatantly good. They help people. They're nice. But not all pirates are like the Straw Hat Pirates. Some people are just really fucked up. Kaido is a perfect example for that. He's a just right rootin' tootin' example of that. So it's just very odd to me that you would write his character rather than just being in awe of what the Marine life is. You would have him essentially what would have been a better way of representing his character, is that you would have had him essentially following the exploits of Luffy and then geeking out about it. And then that just scene that essentially just being deemed negative amongst the Marines. You know, Helmeppo telling him, like, why are you following him? Why are you keeping his wanted poster? Shit like that. That would, if you was to dramatize this character and then try to build something with that, with Kobe, that's what you should do. But instead, you're constantly having him question orders and doing things very out of character, because Kobe is a bitch, all right? Like, Kobe is very much a bitch. Even at the point where he meets Luffy in the Grand Line during Water 7, he's still a bitch. Hell, when he tells him that he wants to become an admiral, he immediately just, he falls to the ground and then just keeps starting apologizing. And he was, I'm pretty sure I look stupid saying that. And Luffy just smiling at him. He's like, man, that's your dream. That's your dream. What's your problem? And it's like, well, Kobe's still a bitch. that's all there is to it, you know? And that's fine. That's who he is. That's his character. It takes a lot for that to grow out of somebody. But essentially, you don't have that character. What you have is that person that's constantly going around, snooping around, trying to figure out what's going on, so then you can have reveals involving this character later on, only for then them to say something pseudo positive, and then the person that they're snooping around with is like, you know what, you're right. And I'm pretty sure that's gonna happen because you did that before in the first season. But it's just, it's not a good fit for Kobe, let alone a good fit for characterization of his character. uh if you just wanted to convey some extra dramatized shit or to steer away from the main cast and what they're doing, you could have handled this a lot better. But like, again, him questioning Garp's orders, the vice admiral, when you're nothing, and in everything that he's doing is to benefit you and to help rise you up, it's stupid. It's just incredibly stupid, because it's like, dude, shut up. And it's like, at this point in time, since you've been with him for so long, follow, what are you questioning orders for? You know, it's like, just follow your orders, do your duty. It's very stupid. It's very stupid. You're forcing shit. I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but when I don't like to be forced. That's code for a snuggle with a struggle. Oh my god, this show is so fucking stupid. Jesus Christ. Okay. Um, here's a quick little one-on-one between me and you writers. You have it in the newspaper that the Alabasta Princess is still missing. This alone destroys the entire plot and premise of Vivi going undercover to infiltrate Baroque Works. This destroys it because they would know who she is. They would be on the lookout for her. They would then find her because she and Igaram play a part in playing actual numbered people, numbered and named people in Baroque Works. So the stupidity behind that it would be national news that she's missing is unbelievably dumb, because someone would have recognized her at some point in time. The fact that you didn't put her picture on the newspaper is also just, that's a faux pas on your part, because they would have a picture of her. That'd be a fucking fact. You know, it's like, it's not as if she hasn't been seen up until this point, or there wouldn't be a picture of her. But this is just from a One Piece fan perspective and whatnot, and then going into what it is that you're going to do into the show. I don't like it. I just really don't like it, because there's so much wrong with what you're doing. You blatantly did this so that you can see the Alabasta Prince is still missing. But again, it goes against the grain of where the story is inevitably heading, as well as the overall concept as to why they do what they do, and then how they were able to get away with it for so long. Jesus Christ. It's so stupid. It's just so fucking stupid. I gotta say, the writing for this show just gets worse and worse as each minute goes by. What you have is a conversation between Garp and Smoker, where they are talking about Luffy, and then Smoker wanting to go after Luffy. Things that don't matter and shouldn't happen. Now, the legitimacy as well as the beauty of One Piece is that a lot of what takes place are situation and things that are done based off of the merit of Luffy, not by the relation to his family. Dragon intervening with him being captured, as well as the overall storm doing what it did to help everyone in Logtown, is a wonderful representation of the underlying notion of fate that happens within One Piece all the time. Hell, it has been stated that a lot of characters are actually fatists in One Piece, where they just, like whatever happens to them is supposed to happen to them because that's just how fate intervenes. And Dragon actually mentions that upon him stopping Smoker from actually capturing Luffy. So the thing is that now you constantly keep having it to where it seems as if Garp is trying to intervene or help Luffy in some type of way, and that just, it makes no sense, and it ruins the legitimacy of Luffy actually gaining the notoriety that he gains based off of his own merit, as well as you have this ridiculous underdeveloped subplot of the Marines actually needing Smoker to have his information or his interests being divvied up somewhere else because there are more important things going on, which also could be looked upon as a pseudo way of Garp getting Smoker away from Luffy or anything like that. Again, stupid, because they hunt them down to Alabasta, and then that's where you see Smoker and Tashigi again, because they understand and they realize and they find out different information that leads them to that lets them know and leads them to believe that they will wind up in Alabasta, which is all necessary and explained perfectly in One Piece. While here, it seems as if you're going to judge the story or dictate it into a way where Garp is going to give Smoker a reason to hunt Baroque Works. Now, here's the thing. Baroque Works is not a criminal organization. They're not bad by any metrics because they don't actually commit crimes or anything like that. Well, they do deal in piracy, I could say. But again, upon finding out that Crocodile is one of the main people running Baroque Works, that's when Smoker literally has to stop Tashigi from doing anything, and he tells her that because of his warlord status, they're not allowed to do shit. So it's something that comes up in passing as he's hunting Straw Hat, who is intervening in what's going on with Baroque Works because he's doing what he's doing, but Smoker is just after Luffy. So that's how that's able to get construed and is wonderfully placed and answered and shit like that. While what you're having happen here is essentially a bunch of different thread lines and plots being brought up simply because the writers know what takes place later on within One Piece, and then they just decide to shove it all in some fucking terrible word salad. So you have Garp mention that the Marines have a delicate political... So they don't. The world government runs everything. They run everything. There's nothing for the Marines to worry about. They only do their job. It's not that big of a deal. Garp is a very fun-loving and free character, so he don't fucking care. Literally one of the main aspects of his character and why he stays a fucking vice admiral is so he doesn't have to work under the celestial dragons and in answer to their every whim. So fuck with making this character so goddamn serious and thinking that this is actually a smart thing to do. Damn, I hate you. But also, you not only mention that the Marines have to deal with politics or whatever, something that's below Smoker's pay grade right now. Motherfucker is just a captain. But then you mention the world government, something that's way out of his fucking pay grade, because the nigga is just a captain. And then only to mention Dragon again, as a means of like showcasing or highlighting, like, yeah, he knows who Dragon was, or Dragon was here, and now Garp knows that. And that doesn't fucking matter. It just really doesn't fucking matter. Hell, even when Garp says to Luffy later on in Water 7, I heard that you met your dad. We don't know where he heard that information from, let alone why he cared to know or cared to deliver that message to Luffy. But essentially, it's unnecessary to have him being mentioned right now because that does nothing. It does absolutely nothing. And again, we shouldn't be deviating away from what the Straw Hats are fucking doing, because that is where the story is supposed to be at. Right now, seeing these two motherfuckers go back and forth in the big dick contest means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. It does nothing. It means nothing. It's sloppy fucking writing. This is underdeveloped, overwhelming slop of drama being written up and thrown in the wayside so they can do that typical TV bullshit where you cut from one person to another person to another person. It's stupid. It's so stupid. But again, you're just delivering and showcasing and highlighting and giving them information that's just not necessary. And even to the point of people who cope with this by saying things like, well, now you know this, or now you see that, or now blah, 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 blah. You are completely missing the beauty of the storytelling within One Piece and how it conveys information and how it handles the world building. They're mentioning the world government. Why the fuck would anyone care about the world government at this point in time? They're not a thing. They're not a thing at all. They're not even important. Hell, Garp mentions the Civil War in Alabasta. That's not anything for the Marines to worry about. They could give less of a fuck about civil war, civil unrest within kingdoms because it happens all the time. The world government genuinely deals in wiping out kingdoms simply because they get rid of the assigned rulers that they have because they don't give a fuck. So why is it that he would care about what's happening with Alabasta when it's just another whatever kingdom to the world government that don't give a fuck? Let alone would he also bring up the world government? I mean, would he also bring up the Revolutionary Army as if they have a hand in dealing with anything involving Alabasta and whatnot? They wouldn't care. No one cares. It's not a thing. The Alabasta already got their hand in with the world government. Them having a civil war is just Alabasta's problem. So the world government wouldn't give a fuck. That's your own personal bullshit. So again, you're just having characters say shit, but the notion behind what it is, of the importance behind the things that they're supposed to be saying, is null and void because the actual series of One Piece explain perfectly why those aren't factors that are brought up at that point in time when things are happening. The world government is ran by a bunch of jackasses. They don't give a fuck about a civil war. The Revolutionary Army deals in shit that goes against the world government. Any nation that works with the world government, they don't care for because they already put their hand in with the wrong lot. Smoker is someone that's obsessed with catching Luffy, so he just goes after Luffy. Garp is a vice admiral who's not even supposed to show up yet, so why the fuck do we keep seeing him? Jesus Christ, you guys are terrible writers. You are ruining a very simplistic, easy to follow, and linear story for no fucking reason. There's no reason to do this. That's the shit that pissed me off in the first episode, but it's just even worse. It just keeps getting worse. There's no reason to go the route that you're going within your narrative. Fuck. I swear to God, like Netflix is just so sloppy. They just, man. Now, I hate just uninspiring action scenes. Like, and it's like, it's just a waste of a moment because all it's going to do is just build up to something stupid. So there's nothing interesting or actiony about it. It's just that, everyone's just kind of fumbling about. And then I'm just supposed to believe that, oh, no, like this, what happened is happening. Now, this is Mr. 11. Mr. 11, yay, whatever. And he was playing dead on one of the wreck ships inside of Laboon's stomach. And then he appeared and then fought Sanji. Now, the uninspired action scene comes from the fact that, for whatever reason, the people who run this show completely missed the memo in One Piece that deemed Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji are those niggas. Like, them motherfuckers can fight. They're problems of fighters. Like seriously. Like, there's an issue with these guys fighting. Luffy doesn't take an L until he fights Crocodile. That's how badass Luffy actually is. He doesn't lose until he takes on Crocodile. And then he fights him not once, not twice, but 3 fucking times. Okay? And the thing is that in the first season, you had him lose to Arlong, and then he barely managed to beat him again. Barely managed to beat him. But that goes against everything that Luffy stood for when his mentality towards when he fought Kuro. was that he trained so that he'd be capable of fighting on the Grand Line. And then even still, he gets stronger as he trains because he thinks of different ways to utilize his abilities. And even Arlong mentioned exactly how dangerous Zoro was when the fact that he was able to take on Merman like it wasn't nothing, despite his ridiculous injuries after dealing with Mihawk. And then you just have how badass Sanji was dealing with Merman and like they were nothing after he came from the Barati. So they were already very capable, very strong fighters. And then you have Vivi and a lot of her people upon meeting them, seeing exactly how strong they are and then utilizing the fact that they're that powerful that maybe they could be of some help when they go back to Alabasta. But if you remove all of that in order to have these lackluster, pathetic fights, in order like so you can see that they were equal in some aspect to these people that they're fighting, so you can elongate these action scenes that are again lackluster and like filled with nothing, then you ruin the legitimacy of exactly how strong they are. So rather than when you get to a point where they actually can have a challenge and it's like a deemable and like necessary challenge, that fight scene loses all of its action because they've been struggling all the way up until this point, and then they skid, and then they just keep winning, or they skin by the skin of their teeth. They skip by the skin of their teeth. So then when they get to a legitimate fight where it's supposed to be, oh, they're actually supposed to take this shit seriously, they're always going to win, or essentially you've always shown the formula that, well, they're struggling and struggling, then they win. They're struggling and struggling, then they win. Struggling, then they win. When a lot of One Piece has them fighting characters and going through actual fights where they're just either on top or they're struggling. So that mixture keeps a lot of the action fresh in One Piece, as well as the legitimacy on whether or not you can't really tell whether they're going to win or whether they're going to lose. But you completely remove that because you have these just pathetic fight scenes where they're just either like unbelievably beneath or just subpar compared to whoever it is that they're tackling. And it's even worse for a character like Zoro, because of the fact that he's someone that swore to never lose again. And to have him constantly be in a situation like that, which is, I know is going to happen in later episodes within the series, it does so much harm to his character than it does good. But I find it odd that essentially you have this scenario going on with them being inside of Laboon when you have the uvula of Laboon being shown in the background. So you can see that they're just like sitting basically in his mouth. Like they're not that far from his mouth or anything like that. But they're supposed to be in his stomach because they're getting corroded by stomach acid. But it doesn't make any sense because the uvula's right there. So, I don't know who did that, but you fucked up. You're really fucked up. And again, very much iconic of what it is that happened with Monstro and Pinocchio. But the thing with Laboon was that it was a whole, like the stomach itself was designed to be like this whole island-esque type deal because of how big he was. And then what, damn, I forgot his name again. The doctor dude was doing. Jesus Christ. It's that damn bad. It's that damn bad. I cannot remember his name. I remember so many different people. Roxy Zebek or Jones. Like I said, I'm a real fan, but I can never remember that damn doctor's name. I just can't. Oh boy. But yeah, you got Sanji fighting Mr. 11, and then he beats him off screen, but he had to struggle with a character who is honestly nothing. He's just nothing of a character compared to Sanji. But, you know, whatever. I bet you they're going to have Vivi pop up and she's actually going to beat them in a fight. Vivi, of all people. Oh, yeah. Is there Karoo in this? Oh, fuck. I forgot. I saw someone talk about that in a video and I wondered, is Karoo in this show? Because Karoo is so essential and integral to the fucking plot of what goes on within One Piece. It's disgusting. Is Karoo in this? Oh man, I can't wait. I hope he is. I really do. I hope he is. This shit is sickening, man. I swear to God, it's sickening. I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to finish. Uh, so Zoro decides to make a big sword in order for him to cut through the boon. After Sanji and Usopp leave from Mr. 11. Uh, As he's talking to Nami, he says, I'm going to hit that punching bag thing in its mouth. Again, clarifying that they are in the mouth, yet are being corroded by stomach acid because whoever wrote this was a fucking moron that doesn't know basic anatomy. But yet, that isn't even the most egregious situation of what's going on. They stole a joke from Monster House. Now, I I don't know why they stole a joke from Monster House. I don't understand the notion or point of stealing a joke from Monster House. Fuck, that thing has been memed for years. So why steal? Like you stole it. That it was blatantly stealing. But the joke is that this is what Zoro did. Is that he said, I'm gonna hit that punching bag thing above its mouth. And then Nami said the uvula, and then Zoro took a long pause, like a way too long pause, and he said, so it's a girl whale. That's the joke. It's from Monster House. That's the joke from Monster House. The fat kid says it when they say that they're above the uvula of the house, and he says, so it's a girl house. And that's it. That's the joke. I don't know why you would put that joke in there because the writers think that this was funny. For whatever reason, they also keep directing the actor to play Zoro to be insanely deadpan. And Zoro was not deadpan. Like, he is very expressive and emotional. But you don't get that from this character because, again, they're not portraying the characters correctly. So a lot of the times you see him yelling at Luffy, screaming, like criticizing everyone, but he's delivering all his lines with the blankest of expressions, and he shouldn't be doing that. Fuck. Even when Zoro and Sanji start yelling at each other, they get very expression, like they emotional. I should say, I said expression, but you're not giving him range to do that. And it's honestly quite sad because the times in which like case in point where him smirking like this, when the times you have him doing shit like that, then it's like, yeah, you get a glimpse of what could be a good portrayal of Zoro, but he ain't doing it right. But again, this is Netflix Pirates. So we finally get introduced to the black chick cosplaying as Vivi. And in a scene that I have to say is very questionable and confusing, because she appears to have taken Nami's compass, but that doesn't make any sense because Vivi would know that that's not a log post, so it's useless in the Grand Line. All compasses are useless in the Grand Line. You need a log post in order for you to traverse the Grand Line. Vivi would know this. She would know this insanely well, as she's one of the people who explains to them these things later on throughout the series. So it's very dumb that she took the compass, let alone that she took the compass only to then sneak attack Nami by missing and hitting the map and then trying to hit her in a fight scene that is better than Sanji's fight scene, but again, still very confusing. Zoro just recently walked off screen. Like he was walking down the steps when everything happened. And then just out of nowhere, this chick shows up and starts attacking Nami. So the fact that Zoro didn't immediately react to this, turn around and go to help, is insane. Also, as insane as Vivi beating Nami. If there was ever a situation in which it was like, oh hell no, Nami might not have the tempo that Usopp makes, but Nami is still a very capable fighter. And the thing is that Vivi is not as capable of a fighter. In fact, her weapon is insanely stupid. But Vivi is not that capable of a fighter, and Nami should have been able to easily kick her ass. But again, this was written by babies, idiotic, stupid babies that just don't know nothing from nothing. So that's why there's a black chick cosplaying as Vivi. That's that was the point of that rant. Okay. more to the form of why these characters are not the characters, but everyone's just cosplaying in this really poorly written show. Sanji seeing a brand new girl in a skimpy outfit, and he's just smiling, not calling her beauty, love, like swarming around or anything like that. And that's Sanji thing, which is what Sanji did when he sees Vivi for the first time. But he's just, you know, he's just standing there. Also, the fact that he's not wearing a suit, um, I've heard about that, and it is bad. It's bad wrong. It's badonk. But this payoff after the fight scene with Vivi and Nami, which is terrible by the way, because Nami could beat Vivi. Um, the payoff of this of Zoro walking up at the end and saying, "Did I miss something?" is so bad. It screams just basic bullshit. And I only say that because it's like this is the caliber of writing that we're getting today, especially from fucking Netflix. But that's as creative as they could possibly get. Is that they were like, ooh, 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 like everything had to happen so it can build up to Zoro coming back and saying, "Did I miss something?" And they were just, I'm pretty sure they was in the writing room pissing themselves for how funny they thought that was. And it again is insanely stupid because he just walked away and you could hear fighting. They're inside of a stomach where everything should be fucking echoing. Nami literally called out to him. So if he's just walking back, what the fuck was happening? This show is bad. This is bad. This is the critics are bad. Like there's no way you could look at this and go, "Yeah, this totally deserves 100%. There's nothing wrong with this show. It's perfect." No. No, it isn't. Okay, now you may not know this, but in the real world, I actually had to take a fucking break from the show. I literally had to start back up the very next day, and then as soon as I turn the episode back on again, I see this shit, and immediately I just want to stop. But I'm gonna power through it because somebody needs to tell the truth, and why not be me? So you have after the incident with Vivi, which also that was at a weird fucking angle, wasn't it? The image I showed you had the camera pointing up her nose as if she was looking down on Nami, but beforehand when she struck, she was staring directly at her. So I don't know why they had that upward angle thing. It was weird. Yeah, but again, everything bad, direction bad, cinematography bad. It's just people look like characters. That's it. But this shit is drab, dreary, and very dull looking of a series. But what I am disgusted by is that I am looking at the Rumbar Pirates or Brooks crew. If I'm is the Rumbar Pirates or whatever, Brooks crew from One Piece. Now, if you only seen the Netflix series and you have no idea who that is, then congratulations. You have essentially been awakened to something that is unfucking necessary to actually show. You see, the beauty of what happened with Laboon was that all you got was a sense of these pirates left him when they had him, and then they were gone. And it's been over 50 years since they returned, and most likely, and like the doctor points out, he heard that they all got killed. But they swore that they would come back and come get him, and then Laboon was just trying to destroy the Red Line in order for him to go and see him. So they already rescued him from being lost, and they swore that they was going to like bring him back to his family or whatever. But essentially, doing this ruins the mystique of the world building within One Piece. It's a clarification that kind of not well for me that kind of like that I came to after thinking about how terrible the writing is for this show. And the thing is that what you have to understand is that this show is forcing down your throats as much information as it possibly can before it actually gets to what it is that that's supposed to be revealed, or what it is that later on in One Piece they finally come to a head and explaining and whatnot. Now, the reason that it's doing that is unfucking known to me because One Piece has one of the most excellent examples of world building that I have ever seen in any narrative form, whether it be TV, movie, manga, anime, fucking manhwa, webcomic, whatever. It has the best example of world building, where it drizzled on a lot of nothing. Now, I'm not saying nothing as in the stuff is not important. I'm saying it as nothing because it's just things that are being used to just build up different aspects of mythos within the world. You know, a lot of characters in terms of like tragic backstory and shit like that. But those small little tidbits that are added to these stories blossom into these fantastic arcs of just wonderful characterizations later on within the series. And it just gives you so much of appreciation to be someone who's on the journey where you're looking at shit from its conception in the beginning. And then later on, hundreds of episodes later, hundreds of chapters later, as you're reading it or whatever, just a small little thing that you might recollect or remember pops up. And it's like, this actually has such a grandiose notion behind it. It's a very romanticized series. And there's a reason for that, because it's supposed to be called Romance Dawn. So it's a very romanticized concept. And because it's a romanticized concept, you have to allow the story to transpire the way that it was initially intended in order for it to have that exact same impact and mythos being brought to you. Otherwise, what you get is shit like this, where you decide to have a group of characters and individuals introduced and showcased that are only supposed to become important later on, narratively, but you have them appear now simply because you know these are the people that are supposed to appear now. But how it's portrayed is that it's a mystery. It's left up as a mystery because knowing exactly who these people are is not important. What the situation was to Laboon is important. Later on, when you find out who these people are, it makes this whole thing that much sweeter of a concept. But if you don't know what the fuck you're doing, you'll miss that. And so then you're just you lay down this horrible fucking thing that ruins that entire story beat. All for nothing but sheer fucking hubris. I know that this is supposed to be Brooks' crew, so let's showcase Brooks' crew. Name the captain, name the people, show some shit, have some shit apparent. But this shit isn't supposed to become relevant until much later. It's not supposed to be revealed until much later. So why are you revealing it now? Because you have no hope of getting to that point later on? Fuck you. That's not the point of the series. That's not the point of what's in One Piece. What should be the point of what you're trying to do is not shoehorn in everything that you know is in the series. What you should be trying to do is allowing the series to grow in a live action standpoint where you're just following beat for beat what the fuck what the fuck the manga and the anime did to get people inspired to either read the manga, look at the anime, or allow yourself to get more seasons so you could inevitably get to that point, because people would then ask the questions, hey, what happened to that pirate crew that was with Laboon? Or if you were able to inevitably get to that point with Brook, they'll go, oh my God, this is the pirate crew that knew Laboon. Remember Laboon? He was all the way back in season 2 of the live action show. But you can't do that because you done fucked it up because you're stupid. Like I said, the only example of an Easter egg that they had was Luffy saying the Don's name while he was passed out, which he shouldn't have been passed out. But this is so poorly written and so terribly considered. And it's wrong because you have so many people that are basically coping with the fact that just because you're aware and you know about shit, that doesn't mean that it gives them an excuse to just butcher a fucking story to this extent, all because you happen to know what it is that's supposed to take place. So the fuck what? That doesn't change how it was presented to you and how it actually took place and what you felt when it was taking place. But no, just no, just no. Fuck. Jesus Christ. You just can't help yourself, can you? Oh my goodness. Never forget, children, no matter what they tell you, DEI is alive and well, and it will never go away. Never. As long as you have idiots behind the camera writing scripts or giving power, you will always have DEI. and it will infest everything you hold dear until there's nothing left. And I would say what makes this even worse of a visual thing is the fact that it's only pushed further with the very bad acting. Um, they did not do well in picking actors for side or outside main characters. They just didn't. Okay, so at this point in the story, you have the pirate crew that took Laboon in, leaving. That when they left over 50 years ago, and they left him at the lighthouse area near the Red Line, where Luffy and gang met him 50 years later. Now, um, they made a deal with the Dr. Crocus in order to take care of Laboon as they circle around the Grand Line and then come back, inevitably come back. The issue with this entire scene, because of course there's an issue with this scene, is that it was depicted as a touching and sad moment in the wake of the pirates and the people, and more so of a character focus on Crocus, sort of, rather than the focus on the Boon as it should. Because again, you're supposed to feel sympathy for this little guy, because this is the person that's important right now. Now, the beauty of what happened in the original thing is that it was showcased like that. The notion of the pirates themselves and what happened to them was kind of shrouded in like little dark mystery thing. You could have took a creative chance and shot this scene in a different aesthetic from how everything is typically shot, considering that it is a flashback. But Netflix don't do that. Especially the dumbasses that work in Netflix. Creativity. That's for idiots. And again, should have focused more on Laboon and the closeness with Laboon and the rest of the crew and the ships. If you felt so inclined to include the Rumbar Pirates, you might as well have shown exactly how close they are. You only had these characters talk about how close they are to Laboon rather than actually show how close Laboon is. The beauty of what happens in Brooks' backstory is that you get to see more of what it is that they did with Laboon as they were traveling and traversing with him up until the point when they inevitably leave him. Thus, allowing for the more of a characterization behind the people on the crew and the ship interacting with Laboon. But this backstory is supposed to focus on Laboon and the hardships of him. So I feel that was a missed opportunity right here, where you could have did more to showcase exactly how sad it was for Laboon to leave them. Hell, even them having a conversation with him to try and explain, we're going to come back, you just wait here. Instead, it's just you just have Brooks say one little thing and then he just immediately understands and feels sad. But it would have been cool if it was like, you know, the rest of the pirates being like, it's all right, Laboon, like, we'll come back, and like waving by, and then they're singing a song, and then he's crying out and doing a little chirp that he's supposed to do. That should have happened. You know, it does more for the characterization of Laboon because that's the character that you're supposed to be focusing on right now. But because you're stupid, you're focusing on the wrong people. So now we get to the point where Garp is explaining Baroque works to everyone after Zoro discovers and reveals that the two captives that they have are members of Baroque works. The issue with this is that this is such a nothing burger for someone of vice admiral status like Garp, because it really is. The idea and the notion behind Baroque works was that it genuinely dove in secrecy. Hell, even what they do in Misty Peak was essentially bounty hunting. So they weren't really doing anything nefarious outside of essentially their just kind of underlying underhanded things for their Mr. Zero. Again, this is just all based off of what the original One Piece did with Baroque Works. Now, what this series is doing is essentially setting up the context of Baroque Works to build them up as a super big bad. So when Luffy fights Crocodile, it is this clashing of things and ideals and whatnot. But again, it goes against the grain of how One Piece is structured narratively because of the fact that Baroque Works is an underlining issue that doesn't come ahead until you get to Alabasta. Because a majority of One Piece's storytelling is that you have all these underlining things that don't come ahead until you finally approach that problem. But again, that helps in the overall world building, while this is structuring itself as a TV show poorly, where it is revealing a bunch of stuff that is not necessary or integral to the story at hand, at the same time trying to make everything fit together in a nice little neat package, even though that's not necessary in order for the storytelling to conclude and finish in the way that's actually beneficial for how everything's going. Yet again, you find yourself cutting away from what the main characters are doing in order for you to showcase and highlight exposition nonsense with a group of characters that don't really fucking matter. The structure of the One Piece story arc is first act, second act, third act, reprisal. And the reprisal is when you get a bulk of the world building stuff and what other characters are doing outside of the main crew and what they did during the current arc that they're in. So having this happen is such a disservice towards the series because it doesn't help. It doesn't help in anything, but it just allows this show to continue to have this underlining plot constantly thrown up onto the surface. But the beauty of One Piece of storytelling is that you don't need that. The audience is fully aware that that is a thing. The audience is fully aware that they saw Miss Sunday, Mr. Five, and Miss Valentine's Day in the other episode. They should be fully aware that that was a thing that they're gonna have to eventually and inevitably deal with upon them getting into the Grand Line. They're aware of that. So then when you have the wonderful concept of when they go to Misty Peak, it turns out all of those people are actually Baroque Works. Throws you for a loop rather than, and then it's like, oh yeah, Baroque Works, that's a thing. We're dealing with that because we just recently ran into Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday in the previous thing with Laboon. So it builds on that factor. But when you have the storytelling going this way, it's essentially for stupid people because it's knocking you over the head, constantly reminding you and telling you, don't forget Baroque Works, don't forget Baroque Works, don't forget Baroque Works. Ooh, the leader is secret. But by revealing all of this now and not letting it do it's again, it's inevitable conclusion the correct way, you're forced to just have this garbage writing exposition, just driven crap that just the only way you can describe it is just bad. It's just ultimately bad. Because again, I know what you're working to and I understand that. I'm not knocking that is something that you would do within a typical script. What I'm knocking is the fact that the series itself has a fantastic way of enabling and handling its world building and characterization. So you do not need to express typical TV jargon and narrative because One Piece can handle it fine all on its own. It's a fucking anime adaptation, you motherfucker. So let it flow the way it's supposed to flow. This is the equivalent of watching Goku train with Master Roshi in Dragon Ball, and then they keep cutting to Bulma and Yamcha going on dates. You see what I mean? It's like, and it like, because you would go, why are we doing this? And it's like, well, the showrunner wants you to remember Bulma's a character that exists. You know Bulma's a character that exists, but right now we're not focusing on her, so we don't need to focus on her. But people write shit like that when they think the audience is stupid. And if anyone thinks their audience and knows that their audience is stupid, it's fucking Netflix. So this is a perfect example of why it is that the showrunner, the writers, and Netflix themselves believe that you are utterly and uncompromisingly stupid. You see, in the first episode, Tashigi met with Miss Sunday, and she handed her a card for joining Baroque Works. This scene just had Tashigi appear for no logical reason at all. She just was eavesdropping for some reason, disobeying orders, something Tashigi wouldn't do, and then she just happened to come into the room because she, fell in the door even though she had it cracked open or whatever. But then she salutes both Smoker and Vice Admiral Garp, only to then see a picture of Miss Sunday and freeze at the picture and then is shooed out of the room. What was the point of that? What exactly could have been the reason behind doing that? I'll tell you the reason behind doing that. Because it's what stupid writers do for their stupid audience. That was all to have you, to jog your memory that Tashigi knows who she is. Or Tashigi has met her. That's it. Even though you do not need that information. That is unnecessary information for you to have at this point in time. Because why would you need a refresher that she met her? You saw it. You saw it in the last episode. Fuck, Netflix isn't a series that handles weekly episodes. This all came out all at once. I'm tackling it the way I'm tackling it because it's giving me a fucking migraine. So why would you need to have her do that for any reason other than the fact that they think that you're so stupid that you need a refresher on what the fuck these characters are supposed to do or what they're going to have them do later on, or who's connected to who and how they're connected to what, because they don't trust that you can just watch this show, that you can keep up with what's going on, that it's a linear story and you can pay attention to what's happening and be fine, even though that's what One Piece is. But this adaptation, since it isn't One Piece, is just it's just a moving migraine for me. Okay, again, more of an example of how stupid these people think you guys are. For anyone that watches this show, just pay attention. Like, I swear to God, if you pay attention, you'll realize exactly how horribly written this really is. You just had the scene of Garp explaining to Smoker what it is that Baroque Works is, the organization, and all that they're doing, in the midst of when Zoro was talking to Nami and Sanji, in order to signify that the information that Garp is now explaining to Smoker is the same information that Zoro was going to be explaining to Nami and Sanji. That's typical narrative concept. That's a typical narrative concept when you're looking at a show and it happens to do a transition like that. You expect it. But you're cut back to Zoro talking to Sanji and Nami, and then he explains the exact same fucking thing Garp just explained to Smoker. So you got the information twice. Jesus Christ. So you wrote 2 times for that information to be explained to the audience, because otherwise they just didn't get it. But you went out of your way to fit that into this show. Again, with your horrible pacing of a series, mind you. And yet you don't have the actual concept that was done with Laboon, where they were all trapped inside in his stomach, with the doctor being inside his stomach, where he's speaking to Nami, Sanji, and Zoro and Usopp about Laboon, while Luffy's on the outside fighting Laboon. You couldn't do that, but you did this. And then you conclude this with your horrible fourth wall breaks of stupid, because they are so dumb that you do this. I'm pretty sure you guys go gaga over this shit whenever you do it, but it is so fucking idiotic to have these fourth wall breaks, because they grab the paper and then they ball it up and then throw it to the side as the paper's revealed Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday. These people don't care of your intelligence. They cannot write. And they don't like One Piece. And to anyone who watches this show and think that they're having fun, they're just dumb. They're just dumb mouth-breathing people who are coping in the fact that essentially this series is explaining to them shit that they already know, and so because of that, they're happy. Fuck. I was willing to let this scene play out after my little tirade, but then I just heard the most egregious shit. You have Zoro Roronoa Zoro, of all people, speak on Luffy as if it is okay to do things that he willingly know he wouldn't like, simply because Luffy doesn't happen to be there at the time. That is not something that his character would do. Fuck anyone who saw this and would dare claim to be a fan of One Piece, because that is disgusting to see this character say some shit like that. He wouldn't. He never would. Ever. Ever say some shit like that. Let alone Nami, for whatever reason, objecting to the idea of him saying, let's throw these people who tried to kill us overboard. And then she goes, our captain wouldn't like that. When the fuck has Luffy ever adhered to the notion of killing people? I'll tell you when. Never. It never happened. He's never been someone that has said that, has thought that. Zoro has killed plenty of fucking people. Luffy don't care. Luffy has never cared. That's not a thing. One of the backdrops of One Piece is freedom. You do whatever you want, and he's totally fine with that. Zoro has killed plenty of people after he's joined the Straw Hats and before he joined the Straw Hats. So why would you allow yourself to write that they would have this abrasion to shit as if they're some milquetoast punk ass characters from some lame ass shonen where the idea of seeing someone die makes them just sweep and sob and cry because how could you do that? You took a life. No, that's dumbass writing from a westernized concept from the gayest of gay minds, because the only show I can think of where I saw that when I was watching just, basic teeny weeny drama is from like the fucking what was that show? Teen Wolf. Teen Wolf, and it was like, oh no, the main character doesn't like killing. Gay. It was like, you're stronger because you don't kill. Gay. It's just gay. You're a werewolf. This is so stupid. The character assassination on this show is fucking abhorrent. I don't understand why fans aren't mad. I do not understand. So, the scene has a back and forth between this black chick cosplaying as Vivi with an accent, like a British accent, which is also kind of confusing. But she's supposed to be sort of Egyptian because black is what Vivi is, and that's I don't. My brain. I don't like the show. But you then have a back and forth between her and Nami, where she's then essentially belittling Nami, even though she stole Nami's compass, and then said, "But you don't need it. You need a log post." And then essentially is upset at the fact that they don't have a log post. But you stole the compass, and you know that a compass is useless, so why steal a fucking compass? But and then you say the crew is only as good as their navigator. Do you have any idea where you are? And it's like they didn't go anywhere. They're just inside the whale right after Reverse Mountain. They're again, this is all to try and highlight something going on with Nami that's going to be apparent later on. You're going to have her have some self-doubt moments or whatever for some reason. I do not know why, but that's you can see it coming a mile away because again, this was written by fucking monkeys, gay dumb monkeys. So I do not understand why they would do that. And then essentially you have it to where Laboon yawns or whatever, starts to wake up, and then everything starts to shake. So they rush out to go save Usopp because he's obviously about to almost die, only for then to show Miss Wednesday, the black chick cosplaying as Vivi, to start cutting the ropes using the little weapons that she have, which begs the question, they didn't fucking search them? They didn't take away all their weapons or nothing? Why would they do that? Why would they be against getting rid of these motherfuckers? They tried to kill them. It makes no sense as to why they would leave them alive. But you see, This is one of those things where it's like in the original series, all this shit is easily explained because Miss Wednesday and Mr. Nine immediately get knocked out by Luffy, and so they're no threat. They have nothing to worry about. They get rid of them. It's whatever. And so then when they appear later, then it's like, oh yeah, these guys. But then it's like, oh, they're a part of these guys. Oh, okay, that makes sense. But for this, it's like, well, why would you keep them? You have them in a prime position to get rid of them. Why would you keep them? They were a threat previously. So, and again, because narrative, you actually have them do this, that, and the third because that's what takes place within the original One Piece story. But because you fucked up the story, they can't do this, that, and the third so it can take place. So you got to make up some bullshit thing for them to do in order for this, that, and the third to take place, which will always be fucking screwed up because One Piece is very well written and you guys are some gay Netflix monkeys. Okay, we then go to everyone trying to save Usopp, who's about to fall into the stomach acid, while you're also seeing the doctor and Luffy try to administer the sedative and it not working. Then Lamboon retreats underwater despite the sedative not working instead of immediately crashing into the red line again. But the odd thing is that upon everyone trying to help Usopp, apparently, for whatever reason, Sanji and Zoro lack the strength to pull Usopp. This series has a really, really bad idea of what it is that these people consider strength. Realistically, characters in One Piece are built different. They just are. You know, and it's like I don't understand how you could look at something like One Piece and miss factoid like that. I mean, again, hell, a major incident that's going to happen is Crocodile piercing Luffy through the fucking stomach, and then Luffy being fine. Okay, like he don't die from that. So like these people are built different, and yet they're having a trouble lifting up Usopp, and then you have the black chick cosplaying as Vivi helping them. See, this is what I mean when I say like their writing is really, really bad because of the fact to where if you know about One Piece, then you understand that, yeah, Vivi's a nice person. She's a good guy. There's a reason behind this. And then essentially what this leads into literally helps with her character. But again, you're not watching One Piece. You're looking at Netflix Pirates. So in accordance to their show, this character, who basically was just wrapped up, tried to kill Nami, was after them for some reason and talking down to them, and wants their ship so they can escape, has absolutely no reason whatsoever to help these people, and yet she's helping these people. You don't know who she is at this point in time. You don't know her connection to the Straw Hats, and you don't understand or know her reasons and her actions behind anything or whatnot. So why exactly is she helping them right now? There's no justification behind this. You can't establish she's bad in the beginning and then have this happen and then be like, nah, they cool. It don't work. it don't work. But if you're a bad writer, you know, this makes perfect sense if you don't think about it. That's all. So we then cut to Luffy singing Binks Brew in order to get Laboon to come back up to the surface. He sheds a tear and he remembers his time that he spent with the pirate crew that he was with. What's wrong with what Ichiro Oda wrote? I think more than anything, that's my biggest problem. I don't mind this being live action. I don't mind that. I have no problem with the notion of turning this live action. If anything, you can sit there and go, you know, why would you want to? That could be a question. You know, why does it need to be live action? Can't you just appreciate what it is? Hell, if anything, just do the anime again, which they're doing. But you know, why have it been live action? But the better question is, if you're going to adapt it, why change anything within the narrative when you adapt it? I don't understand not sticking to what it is that Ichiro actually wrote. Why, if you have the blank check from Netflix and the ability to do this justice, because you have put in the technical skills of like the special effects and whatnot to not be horrible. A lot of the set pieces and designs are fine. The coloring is terrible though, but you know, you put so much work into the costumes, the character designs, and things like that, and different people looking like the way they should. So why is it that when it came to the script, you guys just lost your fucking minds and became retards? I do not understand that. I like that's my biggest gripe, because again, your story has way too many fucking plot holes in it. And it's hard to watch it because of that. But the actual story of One Piece itself doesn't have plot holes in it. It doesn't. So what exactly was the difficulty in just following that? If the attempt was to just bring that into live action, then why did that have to change? It's the biggest question that I have when it comes to the direction behind this show. I do not understand the need to change things on such a grand scale from what it is that Ichiro Oda originally wrote. Even if you try to say, well, he had a hand in doing this, which he couldn't have, because he's still writing One Piece today and he's still drawing it. Or even if you say he okayed what the script changes is, that's also, again, impossible, because he doesn't okay the script changes in the fucking anime. So he don't care what the other adaptations of his work is, because he has his original work. J.K. Rowling in this bitch. So what exactly was the what possessed you people to change things on such a grand scale when you didn't have to? What exactly was so wrong with showcasing what originally was created and what he originally made? That's my biggest question. Not just, oh, they had you're not just, no, he okayed it. No, why did you do it? Fuck. Okay, so Laboon opens his mouth, and yet again, I'm faced with the reality of they're right there at his mouth. Like, they're just right there. They're sitting pretty in his mouth. Yet, for some reason, their stomach acid dissolving the ship. Doesn't make any sense. And again, from seeing Luffy dance in front of Laboon, I'm also given a sense of scale where Laboon is not as big as he's supposed to be. Again, doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? This is very confusing, because after this, you then have Vivi standing around with everyone else, looking confused as they then, get ready to get out. Almost as if she's inspired by them when nothing happened. So the direction in this show and the things that are going on, because again, she's still the enemy. She just broke free and now they're about to get out. So why is she just standing around? Like, they're obviously she's in their stomach for a reason. So they should explain, she should be trying to do whatever she's trying to do, or go hide, or go get Mr. 9, whom I mistakenly called Mr. 11 in this, but whatever. Again, there's just poor direction all around. Just so much bad direction all around. Here's further proof that Laboon is not as big as he's supposed to be, which is why he was such a threatening presence in the first place. But also, how the fuck did they sail out? There's no wind. They literally set the main sail. Nami even says set the main. But how did they sail out? There's no wind. The ship wasn't even facing in the right direction. So they had to turn the ship around, and then they sailed out with no wind, but the main sail is up. I don't know why they let dumb people write shit. I do not know why. But, you're not supposed to think about it. You're just supposed to let it be, We now cut back to Kobe and Helmeppo with Tashigi after the Straw Hats were able to escape Laboon. Why? Again, terrible understanding of narrative and pacing for this show. But we are met with Tashigi explaining her dream to Kobe and Helmeppo, rather than when she explained it to Zoro, when she should have. after she was talking about the swords with someone who knew swords and liked swords, which made far more sense. But hey, when you're writing your shit, you tend to do shit. But then you have her essentially speak as if Smoker is kind of, belittling her dream, something he wouldn't do. And then you have Kobe talk to her as if he's this wise soothsayer, which he isn't. Remember, Kobe has only recently joined the Marines, while who knows how long Tashigi has been a part of the Marines, and there's really no reason for her to seek advice or gain advice from him. And again, I can't help but point out the fact that Garp should not be here. You see, the problem with showcasing Kobe and Helmeppo's growth in tandem to what the Straw Hats are doing undermines the actual growth that he has when you are supposed to see him again when they get to Water 7. You see, the problem is that when you see them again when they get to Water 7, aside from the grand reveal of who Garp is and his relation to Luffy, which they completely fucked up, Kobe and Helmeppo can actually do CP9's like advanced military training shit. The stuff that only advanced Marines are capable of doing. And they're actually able to do a little bit of it. And you know this because we actually find out that Kobe and Helmeppo have started training immediately after they left the East Blue. So upon them joining Garp's ship, dealing with Captain Morgan the way that they do, they immediately go back to Navy headquarters and begin their training. So, thus being able to justify Kobe getting that much stronger upon him seeing Luffy and the rest of the gang at the point in time when he does. So by removing that concept and getting rid of that by actually seeing Kobe and Helmeppo throughout the series, you are basically cutting him at the knees from showing him get stronger. Because right now, we're not seeing him train to stop being the weak little whiny bitch that he was when Luffy first met him, to grow up and actually be a strong, capable Marine officer. No, we're constantly see him just basically talking about understanding and choosing your path and shit like that that you're not supposed to get or care coming out of Kobe's mouth. And yet, here we are, looking at this guy for some reason, and all it does is ruin the actual character growth that he's supposed to have, which is very wonderful and a beautiful thing and a fun thing to see and an amazing concept of a character. But you don't get that. You don't get that because the show was written by, what is it? Yep, dumb gay monkeys. Okay, so we cut back to the Straw Hats now with the doctor in the lighthouse, and Usopp just fixed his door apparently. Then you're getting, then you're given the insulting dialogue from Usopp saying that, you could live inside Laboon. It'll probably be really comfortable in there. Because if you know anything about One Piece, then you know that the Doctor actually has a house inside of Laboon because he was so fucking big. And he literally painted the inside of his stomach lining to look like the sea and everything. It was a whole thing, and it's wonderful, and it was great, and it was creative and different and interesting. And you did not get to see that with this because this was written by fucking idiots. So they just had that part of dialogue because, you're stupid. You're supposed to be stupid when you watch this. So that's how everything makes sense because you're a fucking moron. They expect you to be one when you look at this. So then you're given Nami having a little sad little about herself because she doesn't understand how to navigate the seas, and then she's kind of tearing herself down for some reason. It really isn't a concept of her doubting her skills. What it should be, more so just the fact that they're ill-equipped because they don't know the Grand Line because it is a crazy, mysterious patch of ocean. And so that's all that should have been said. But then you have the doc explain to her what log posts are and how they operate and work, but they miss some very crucial detail, which is very important for Nami as a character, as well as just the overall treachery of the Grand Line itself. You see, he explains that the log posts reset upon you getting to an island, so then they point to another island. That's not what they're supposed to do. What they're supposed to do is that the navigator actually has to coordinate the island's magnetic field, record it, and then it transponds to another island's magnetic field that they then have to get to. And essentially, you can throw off the entire process by having a bad navigator, which is why the Grand Line is so treacherous and dangerous. But if you have a navigator that's able to lock in the magnetic field of whatever island that you're on, if you don't leave that island within a certain limit, or if you have if the island is big enough or whatever, it could take days or years to actually record the magnetic field by someone that basically isn't capable. So with Nami, she's able to actually understand, like, yeah, it's going to be a couple of days, it's going to be, a couple of hours or whatever. We just jump from here to here doing whatever because blah, blah, blah. And it leads up and sets up exactly why they spend so much time in one place and why they don't spend so much time in other places. And they go from there. It's a wonderful jumping off point. But on here, they kind of undermine the entire thing because, again, why would you need a navigator to that extent if log posters were just that easy to manipulate? And then you also just have the notion of essentially how dangerous the seas can get, for how randomized different weather occurrences and stuff like that can occur, which also would be beneficial for Nami. None of that is said right now, which is what is supposed to be said in order to back up and justify more why they would need someone like Nami, let alone why her doubts and everything need to be gone, because like this is just how important her character is for this crew. But again, if the log post can do it automatically, then why would they need such a good navigator like Nami in the first place? So again, this is the Netflix writing kind of undercutting Oda's writing, which gave a lot of depth towards what happens in the Grand Line and how to traverse the Grand Line, while this just makes it seem like a simple chore. Or you just go there and it does it automatically. It's not supposed to. He has no reason to believe you. Now, what just happened here is that essentially Luffy drew Jolly Roger on the front of Laboon's face, and then he essentially got him to promise that he won't bash his head into the red line anymore, otherwise he'll make the Jolly Roger disappear. So thus having him promise to essentially no longer hurt himself. But what you did was that you essentially had Luffy tell Laboon that he is now a part of the Straw Hats and that they're definitely going to come back. But that doesn't make any sense, because that essentially is the exact same promise that he was promised by the other pirates who are gone in accordance to this story. Now, so again, it doesn't make sense that Laboon would just immediately believe them, because all Luffy did was sing a song and then like he just painted on Laboon's face, which doesn't really signify anything that would essentially get Laboon to just believe him or care for what he has to say or like him. But in the original story, that's what is supposed to happen in order for Laboon to be happy about them and get painted on the face or whatnot. But what the original story did was that Luffy and this motherfucker fought. All right? Like, Luffy tore off the mast of the ship and stuck it in his nose. And then they literally had a fight. And then Luffy said, it's a draw. And I'm gonna come. He said, I'm strong, aren't I? Now me and you are rivals. And so you need to get stronger. So when I come back, we fight again. Because I actually am going to circle the Grand Line. And I'm going to come back here. So you better be prepared to fight. But you keep that symbol and don't wreck it, because it's proof that you know Straw Hat Luffy. And so by removing that narrative, which again was something that spoke to Laboon and then was very Luffy to do. It's not the same thing that the other pirates did. It's something that Luffy did that was unique to Luffy, because that's who that character is. Luffy is someone that genuinely will fight somebody to prove a point. Hell, he does shit just for the sake of doing it all the time. Even when he's supposed to knock out Miss Wednesday and Mr. Nine, he just says, I just felt like doing it. So, again, it's a character thing that sets up so many different stuff for Luffy, as well as a positive note for Laboon, because it gives him something else to look forward to upon their return, rather than, I promise you, we're gonna be back. You know, it had depth to it. It had. It, I just cannot think of anything else to say in the realm of just how bad this show is and how much it's butchering the actual story of One Piece. Man, it's just undercutting and undermining everything that makes a lot of this stuff special. And it was like, oh, Luffy would just give a speech. No, he fought him. They fought. He literally fought a whale. As goofy and silly as that sounds, that's what happened, because that's One Piece. But you remove that. Why? Because you probably thought this is goofy and silly. But bitch, that's what you're adapting. Then adapt it. But, you know, you guys are bad writers, so butchering characters. We got some more butchering of characters, everybody. Yes, let's destroy characters. E02 would be so proud at how great we're butchering characters. So we cut back to Tashigi and Smoker, again, for whatever reason, in which Smoker tells Tashigi that she has to stay in Logtown while he's leaving. And then she says no. That's not how the Marines work, bruh. If he tells her to stay, she gotta stay. That's it. For whatever reason, they're misconstruing a lot of the stuff that goes on within One Piece in order to push their dumbass narrative. But it don't work. It don't work, because again, you're trying to add extra drama to these characters when it's very simplistic why they do what they do, how they're able to get to where they're going to, and then essentially the means in which they're able to work and operate in the way it's supposed to function, because it was written out perfectly by E02. But you dumbasses pissing on the shoulders of giants. You don't understand any of that stuff, so what you're conveying makes no sense. So you have Tashigi tell Smoker no, and then that she has a Gold Roger of her own to chase. Also, the fact that Smoker believes that Luffy is trying to finish something Gold Roger did is also retarded, because Gold Roger completed what he wanted to do. He circled the Grand Line. He found One Piece. He just started a new pirate era before he died. He wasn't finishing he wasn't waiting for someone to finish anything. He did it. It's like, if anything, Luffy just is someone that reminds him of Gold Roger, thus why Smoker is just obsessed with trying to get him. Which he fails miserably at, by the way. But you have her essentially talk about how she's trying to get the swords and whatnot, and which is her dream and everything. And she's speaking to Smoker, and he's like, what? None of that matters. She's just gonna go. She's a part of his group of Marines that he runs. And so she would go. She would go with Smoker. So why try to add this extra drama? And then you also try to make it to where Baroque Works is a problem for them or her or whatever. They're not supposed to know about these people. It's a secret organization, so they don't know who's doing what or what they're capable of or whatnot. Oi. It's unbelievably underwhelming how this show is written. And then essentially it's like, oh no, it's totally okay for you to disobey orders as long as you get to do whatever you want. Nigga, that's what a pirate is. So why would you allow the Marines to function like that? Oh, because Kobe said it. Kobe's an idiot in this show. So that doesn't make any sense. Because again, that's doing pirate shit. They have rules, order, and codes for a reason. So why are you trying to make it to where it's okay for these characters to go, no. And I also have to admit, this is bad for these characters now, considering what is going to happen later within the plot of One Piece when it involves the Marines and a fucking warlord. Because upon discovery of a warlord in cahoots with what's going on in Alabasta, don't want to spoil nothing for nobody if they don't already know, fuck, Smoker legitimately stops what he's doing, because it's a warlord. And they're literally under strict rules to not interfere with what warlords have going on because they're not supposed to be touched by order of the world government. The only reason anything even happens to Crocodile is because they find him with boogie powder. So it's not even the stuff that he did in terms of what he was going to do to Alabasta. I said Crocodile. Well, I fucked up the spoiler thing, so fuck you guys. But the only reason that they do anything to him is because of the boogie powder. It's not because of what he had going on in Alabasta. That's not a problem. They did not care. It's a warlord. They can do whatever they want. That's the deal. Jesus Christ. They're even allowed to continue piracy. So it's... Oh my goodness. But again, that's a plot point. But if you're setting up that it's okay for these characters to disobey direct orders or to go against the very notion of the Marines or the world government already, then it's going to undermine that concept and that huge plot point later on because it's necessary. It is so necessary within the story that that happens that way and it's explained in that notion. But if you're having characters just tell you, nah, it's okay to disobey orders because you feel like it, then how are they going to follow? Why would they follow orders later? Like, oh man, oh my goodness. But hey, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, right? Because that's how writing works. You ain't shit. You just ain't shit. I thought like all the shitty things that this show has done would be, were whatever. But this right here is just ain't shit. You have this motherfucker literally say the name Laugh Tale. Seriously? Right now? Right now is when you have him do that. And then reveal that he knows Roger? That... You ain't shit. And so we finally reach the end of the episode, my viewer, in which Nami is charting her charts. Sanji's cooking, Chopper's doctoring. And she explains to Luffy that the next island is straight ahead, to which he looks upon in delight and smiles as the ship carries forward. I have to say, final assessment of this. The show is very bad. Looks aside, it's such a poorly written show with unbelievable plot holes. Just ridiculous concept of characters and notion and stuff to push forward. All of it is driven by the fact that you would already know what takes place within the actual One Piece story. Not as if this was being a different telling of the One Piece story, just happened to be with live action people. Instead, this is a show that's genuinely pushed with the idea that the only people who would watch this would be One Piece fans, thus justifying all of the praise that this show gets, because a lot of dumb people who look at and enjoy stuff, especially with today's content, are perfectly fine with the Jingle Key mentality. As long as they see things that look similar to something that they're used to, or they're reminded about something that they already know about, they're perfectly fine with giving anything and everything a passing grade. It does not matter. There is no integrity behind anything that these people do. Absolutely none. So because of that, you will constantly get a slew of bullshit like this. The only problem is that we are now faced with a series that is based off of an anime that has one, crazy ass diehard fans that don't give a fuck. They just like anything and everything that comes out as One Piece. And two, a series of people who are in the fandom of anime that do not care about the quality of anime. As long as shit is pretty, they don't give a fuck. Story, continuity, character, none of that shit matters. As long as things look nice, they're fine. The issue with that is that bleeds over into the same dumbasses that like Netflix shit, because that's how Netflix works. None of this, like, they just pump out as much slop as they want to without actually having to have any integrity behind what it is that they're actually making. So you'll keep getting slop because someone will keep eating it, but the people who are eating it are perfectly fine and love to eat and consume slop. And then anyone that says otherwise will be harassed, demoralized, and just bombarded with hate. Because how dare you criticize something that I like, even though the criticisms can be very well founded and make perfect sense. So here we are. Now, I don't know when I'm going to continue the next episode, but lo and behold, I will eventually. But for right now, I'm just happy that this is over with. I'm very underwhelming of a thing, of a series. It did so much more to focus on other characters rather than Laboon and the beauty of what they did with his character, which again highlighted a lot of notion about Luffy and his romantic mentality towards a lot of the stuff that happens within One Piece. But undermining a lot of the stuff that Ichiro Oda originally wrote, as well as completely trying to shuffle this series to fit a typical TV narrative perspective rather than the actual linear manga anime concept that One Piece is actually known for, is doing a lot more harm than it is good, because we're seeing characters who don't matter get into concepts and situations that aren't necessary for us to actually pay attention to, and then we're diving deeper into, I guess, their reason and logic behind doing the certain things that they're going to do, even though the less we know about these characters, the better they actually appear per each of the Oda's writing. So knowing and learning as much as we are about them now is really undermining the mystique, the intrigue, or just their overall power. So this is not good. It is not good. I'll say that till I'm blue in the face, but it is really not good. If you're an actual One Piece fan and you care about continuity, it's perfectly okay to call this out for the bullshit that it is. It really is. But if you're enjoying this slop, then hey, you're enjoying it. There's nothing I can do about it. Hell, you're probably not even looking at this or give a fuck what the hell I gotta say. But yeah, this does have a litany of problems. It is very badly written. It has a slew of bad actors that pop up every here and there for whatever reason, and it just is a disrepresentation of the majesty of One Piece, and I don't understand why they even would do that. Fuck, right now, look at this. Look at Luffy's pants. Look at his shorts. His shorts are these khaki shorts. His shorts are jeans. He's always had jean shorts. Why are you giving him these khaki? I don't know. I just don't know. But I don't like it. But this has been another episode of Fun with Flame. I've been your host, Danieltheflame, and as always, good people. Hope you have fun.